It's time for another glorious fight week. Hello everyone and welcome to this special UFC edition of Beat the Bookie. Alongside Chris Stroyer and Terrence Murphy, I'm Srikar Rajendran. Fellas, it's been an interesting time in the UFC, especially when it comes to 205, the light heavyweight division where the champion Alex Poatan Pereira presides. And in the main event, he will take on Magomed Ankalaev, the #1 contender. Fellas, just some early thoughts on the matchup and what the energy's like going into this one.
Oh, there's a lot of energy going into this one, Srikar. Personally, I want Pereira to win, but the line was a little close when it opened up to me. -110 apiece. Terrence, what do you think?
Look, guys, I'm excited for that fight, but the fight that I'm most excited for, the co-main, Fiziev vs. Gaethje. We already got it once 2 years ago, and then now we get that again? It was already a war and a fight of the year contender. I can't wait to watch it.
Well, we'll have our picks on the main and co-main event in just a second, but before we truck along any further, it's a good idea to take a look back at the last man to saddle up in this seat, Griffin Marcy. How did we look? Did you lay a good foundation for me? Let's see. An overall profit, $2. Well, I guess green is green, and every dollar really counts, but...
Yeah, we do like that. I mean, of course, we like to see more of that, Marcy. I mean, look, I'm not doubting you now, but really, I mean, green's in the green. Win's a win, right, Chris?
Any cent on the dollar is a win for me.
Well, that Iowa State win gave him some big money right there. The spread specifically, -5.5. And we look at the semester standings.
Oh, yeah.
Who is catching Skylar Wilkes? Way out in front. $254 of profit. Gentlemen, I don't think we're going to replicate it, but we can sure try our best.
Well, look, it's three of us, guys. That's just one man. I mean, we should be able to get some more profit here, but look at all of them. I mean, look, Sean, what are you doing, buddy? Jordan, even like the second most right there. I mean, we could definitely do it.
I think we could win $8.31 to get right into second place.
Well, second place, not quite our tempo. We're always going to be shooting for first, just like the two in the co-main event, which is really just as explosive as the main event. Justin Gaethje takes on Rafael Fiziev in a matchup that was put together just a week and a half ago. And the last time these two fought, it was an absolute war on the feet. If we compare these two stylistically, Gaethje is an all-out brawler who just loves creating damage, as he once said. His nickname is quite literally the highlight. But he's also very tactical with how he uses the intensity of his game in bunches, and Rafael Fiziev is one of the best Muay Thai kickboxers in the world, and he's extremely sharp with his striking, especially his body kicks from range. When I watched the last fight between these two at UFC 286 back in 2023, I noticed two things. One, Fiziev made some slight missteps that held him back, and he got fatigued early. If he takes control and doesn't get sucked into the fight Gaethje wants to make it, I think Fiziev should handle business. I'll go ahead and put $10 on Rafael Fiziev's money line. I think he rights his wrongs from the first fight in what should be another close one, just like the first fight. Gaethje most definitely has a great shot here. And the variables of Gaethje's last fight was getting completely beat up by Max Holloway, and Fiziev coming off a major knee injury. It makes things difficult, but Fiziev is the pick here. And moving on to the main event, UFC 313 in Las Vegas, big stakes in the Sin City. The UFC's light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira defending his belt against the #1 contender Magomed Ankalaev. I'm going to put 10 down on Pereira. The big narrative with this one is supposedly striker versus grappler. How will Poatan do when he has to face the wrestling that Ankalaev brings? My gripe with that is that when it comes to fight IQ, it's not Magomed's strong suit. He hasn't actually wrestled that much. It took him getting leg kicked by Jan Blachowicz for 3 rounds before he decided to wrestle. If you give Pereira 3 rounds willingly, it's game over. I think past tendencies catch up to Magomed Ankalaev here, and Pereira's counters will be too much. I mentioned leg kicks from Jan Blachowicz. Imagine leg kicks from Poatan. He will batter the lower body in the first 2 rounds before catching the chin in the third. $10 on Poatan, but it's not just up to me. Let's see what C-Suite is thinking right here with the main and co-main event. All right, we're in lockstep on Pereira. Looking good there. He is the slight favorite in this one. Fiziev and Gaethje, I told you about the variables before, and that leads to some friction right there. We're going to go with Fiziev, but the C-Suite looking at Justin Gaethje at plus money, looking good right there. But Terrence, I know you got a parlay. I've been speaking a lot. Let's see what you cooked up.
Srikar, let me tell you, I've got some heat for you, and I think everyone should ride this lay, even though Chris will probably tell you otherwise, but that's besides the point. I don't get the opportunity to go on air often, so I'm going to make the most of this and give you a parlay that everyone is going to need to ride to make their money for the week. With that, let's get to the first leg. We're going to go straight to the main event, Magomed Ankalaev versus the champ Alex Pereira. This is an easy decision, and it's the outcome that everyone wants. Wait, you thought I was going to go with Alex? Call me John Cena, because I'm turning heel on Srikar and going with Ankalaev by knockout at plus 350. Look, Pereira's been a great champion, and he has been dominant at light heavyweight. But what wrestlers or grapplers has he fought during his reign? Other than Jan Blachowicz, which he won by a controversial split decision, the answer is none. He doesn't have the grappling or wrestling to compete with a top wrestler in the division, and Ankalaev will be his biggest test yet in that department. Not to mention, Pereira also struggled on the feet against Khalil Roundtree in his last defense. And I saw a Pereira that got outclassed for the first 2 rounds by someone with similar striking ability to Ankalaev. Combine that with his superior grappling, and that is a perfect storm to take out Poatan. I know Srikar says that he doesn't have the fight IQ to wrestle against Pereira, but I couldn't disagree more. I think he knows that he has that advantage, and he will utilize it to take down and control Pereira. I see multiple takedown attempts, with the successful ones costing Pereira, as he will receive vicious ground and pound shots from Ankalaev until the ref has to pull him off for the TKO victory. So give me Ankalaev there. Next up, let's go to the lightweight co-main event, Rafael Fiziev versus Justin Gaethje. I'm going to hop on Srikar's train and take Fiziev by points at plus 225. Look, I love Justin Gaethje as much as the next person, but all of our favorite top contenders from the late 2010s are now starting to regress. You see that with Tony Ferguson, Israel Adesanya, and even Conor McGregor and more. Justin is coming off the worst loss of his career against Max Holloway, and at his age, some fighters don't come out the same from a brutal knockout like that. Not to mention, the last fight against Fiziev was a war, and it was pretty close majority decision for Gaethje. I think Fiziev is going to correct his mistakes from the last fight, and just like Chris Stroyer said, and although he's fighting for the first time since September 2023 because of that knee injury, he has been in training camp waiting for a fight since December. And I think he's ready to fight. Along with the 5-year age gap between the two, the younger fighter usually comes up on top in these scenarios. So give me Fiziev by points as my second leg. Finally, for my third leg, we're going to the headlining prelim on the card, Curtis Blaydes versus Rizvan Kuniev. Although I was tempted to bet Kuniev as a plus 250 dog, I'm taking Curtis Blaydes by KO/TKO at plus 130. Blaydes is an All-American wrestler and just fought for the interim heavyweight title in July. Of course, that didn't really go his way, but this is a guy who's been ranked in the top 10 ranks of the heavyweight division since 2018. With fights with the likes of Tom Aspinall, Francis Ngannou, and all the best the division has to offer over the last decade. Kuniev, on the other hand, is an unranked Dagestani fighter who is making his UFC debut after a knockout win over Hugo Kuna on the Contender Series and hasn't lost since 2015. So you're probably asking, Terrence, why the hell did you take us to bet Blaydes? To that, I tell you to watch Sean Strickland versus Abus Magomedov. Magomedov was a Dagestani fighter, also making his UFC debut, who was heavily favored over a veteran Sean Strickland. And guess what happened? He got put out in the second round. I'm sensing a similar outcome here, as Kuniev has not fought anyone of the caliber of Blaydes has over his career. Blaydes also has knockouts in his last 3 and has the power to put anyone's lights out. And I think he'll do the same against Kuniev as he did to so many great heavyweights. That's it, and Ankalaev, Fiziev, and Blaydes, $10 on this leg puts out over $320. We're gonna be rich, and you won't really be able to see me at CitrusTV because I'm gonna be booking a trip to Cabo after this hits. Trust me, you don't want to listen to Srikar, but maybe Chris will have some better bets for us.
Terrence, you know I love parlays, and that's definitely a juicy one. I'm not too sure about you and Srikar siding with Fiziev though, but y'all know ball or MMA in this case, so I'll trust the intuition. But now it's time for me to get in on the action with my best bets. And to start, we're going to go with some value here. We're dipping down to one of my favorite parts of every card, the early prelims. And there is one specific fight on my mind for this card, the headliner, of course. Coming straight off, winning the 32nd edition of The Ultimate Fighter, Myron the Legend Santos is slated to take on Dana White Contender Series alum Francis Fire Marshall. Santos is an impressive 15-1 going into his second UFC bout, while Marshall is just 8-2 and sitting at 2-2 in the big leagues. And his 2 losses are against good competition though, losing a close split decision to a very good William Gomis and a TKO loss to a surging Isaac Dalgarian in 2023. Marshall bounced back with a hard-fought split decision win over Dennis Bazookia last year. But the odds makers don't really seem to care though, as Santos sits at a -300 favorite. and on paper, the featherweight might be the better fighter. He's technically sound, he's a very good striker with knockout power in every blow. However, there's a caveat. That one on his record is to Dan Argueta 3 years ago, and who reminds me exactly of Francis Marshall. High pressure fighter, strong wrestling base, willing to take a punch to throw too, but quite frankly, I think Marshall is better than Argueta. Remember the nickname I just said? Fire? The dude is a real-life firefighter. He's used to dealing with flames and strikes in the heat of battle. And although Santos' loss is 3 years removed, Argueta was able to secure takedowns and wear on Santos through strong grappling. And I believe the same principles apply here. Islam Makhachev once said about a kangaroo, "Nobody check his grappling." Argueta checks Santos, and I believe Marshall's about to do the same. The pick is Francis Fire Marshall right here. Moneyline at plus 265. And we'll dive more into the prelims later, don't worry about that. But it's just time to get up to the main card again and talk about the only women's fight on this card. This fight between 5th-ranked strawweight Amanda Lemos and 7th-ranked Yasmin Lucindo is set to be an interesting one. Both hail from Brazil, but there's a 14-year difference in age. Lemos 37 years of age and Lucindo 23 years young. It really made me think about it and do some research. Across 90 fights from various professional promotions across the world, the younger fighter in that age gap wins 73% of the time. That's a lot. And people seem to feel this way because Lucindo opened as a plus 136 dog and now sits at minus 140. That's a large amount of EV as she looks to increase her win streak to 5. But Lemos is no slouch. She may have less fights than Lucindo, but she has fought the best in the world. Despite her age, she's still one of the most powerful strikers, that strawweight has ever seen. She has put power in every punch, but her takedown defense and grappling is just abysmal. She suffered the first standing arm triangle in UFC history to Jessica Andrade and was just flat out dominated by champion Zhang Weili and surging Virna Jandiroba. The door is wide open here for Lucindo. She's landed at least 2 takedowns in every single outing during her 4-fight win streak. She's also not afraid to stand and trade with Lemos. But that's not the key to victory here. Lucindo can neutralize the speed and power by Lemos to sticking to her strengths. And her dance partner has a huge weakness, and it's what I just said, the takedowns and the grappling. I see Lucindo using her age and cardio to her advantage, pacing the fight and staying out of danger. That's why I'm going with Yasmin Lucindo, 5 points at plus 125. Yo, Terrence, I heard you got some locks over there.
Guess who's back? Back again. It's me coming to you with some more heat to get you your own trip to Cabo with me. Again, don't listen to Srikar's takes, listen to mine, and I'll guarantee that you'll be swimming in money like Mr. Scrooge. Now, let's get into my best bets for the card. First up, let's start with a Brazilian, and he is the best knockout artist on the card. You all know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the legend himself, Bruno Ferreira, in his fight against Armen Petrosyan. I'm putting 10 on Ferreira not only to knock him out, but to do it in the first round at plus 550. Take a guess of how many first-round knockouts Ferreira has in his last 6 wins. The answer is all 6 of them, and he has a 100% finish rate in the UFC. This is a guy with crazy power and comes out swinging to put people out early. He had a disappointing loss in his last bout to Abus Magomedov in October, but I think although Petrosyan is the betting favorite, Ferreira will knock him out as he did so many before him. Not to mention Petrosyan is coming off back-to-back losses and finished in both contests. I think he won't be able to handle the pressure and power that Ferreira will bring early, leading to the first round knockout that I'm expecting to happen. At this value, this is a no-brainer for the best bet on the card, so give me 10 on Ferreira in the end to end this one early at plus 550. Next up, let's go to the main card for Ignacio Bahamondes versus Jalen Turner. This fight's going to be fun with 2 electrifying lightweights, but who will end up on top? I say give me Bahamondes by knockout at plus 285. This bet is coming off the back of the value of the line and me not really trusting Jalen Turner. Turner has lost 3 of his last 4 fights, and especially in his last loss to Renato Moicano, really made me nervous. For someone who is supposed to be known for his diverse and potent striking style, he looked lost on the feet against someone with similar striking ability to Bahamondes, and got knocked out in the first 2 rounds. Bahamondes is also coming off back-to-back first-round knockout wins in 2024, and I see him continuing that streak with a knockout victory over Turner. At plus 285, this is great value for the Chilean, who is already the betting favorite, so give me 10 on Bahamondes to get it done.
that are my bets for the card. Trust me, if you don't take these, you'll regret it. But if you want to make the big bucks, I heard Chris has a massive parlay for us to get the best value out of the undercard.
Remember before when I said I love parlays, I love the prelims, and that we were going to talk about it? You must not know me at all, because we're about to make a 7-leg parlay covering the early prelims. It's about to get hot in the kitchen. I'm about to cook. There goes the jacket. 7 fights, 7 winners. You can straight them, you can parlay them. I wouldn't tell you something that I'm not confident in. Let's start with the first fight of the night, and a short notice one at that. Chris Gutierrez was set to face 16-0 Brazilian prospect John Matsumoto at the T-Mobile Arena, but due to some card shuffling, Matsumoto was picked to fight bantamweight veteran Rob Font 2 weeks ago. So in steps John Castaneda on 5 days' notice to take his place. Castaneda isn't a bad fighter in his own right, and at 31 years of age, 21-7 overall, sits at just 4-3 in the UFC. Gutierrez, on the other hand, is 33, but he's 9-3 with 1 draw in his UFC career. This fight is going to be a high-level battle of footwork, feints, and angles, but there's going to be levels to this. Castaneda is a fighter that, although he's slick, likes to pressure with forward movement. However, that will play right into Gutierrez's game. El Guapo is a defensive-minded fighter that lures his opponents into bad spots and makes them pay with his timing and his speed, and his use of kicks is going to be massive in this fight. He has an extremely diverse arsenal of calf kicks and body kicks. Once he establishes that threat, he is a master of the feint, always making you think about it even when it's not there. Castaneda also doesn't have the best defense when it comes to striking. In a 2020 match against Nathaniel Wood, he landed 58 out of 67 leg kicks on Castaneda. I don't even know how the guy walked out of the cage, let alone the building. He also absorbed 5.2 strikes per minute over his UFC career, compared to just 2.64 per minute for Gutierrez. The pick is plain and simple here. There are levels to the fight game, and I think Gutierrez is going to use his IQ and precision to show he's on a higher one. Give me Chris Gutierrez minus 105 for my first leg. And the next fight is a Dana White Contender Series alum Jordan Santos making his UFC debut against Ozzy Diaz. Coming off a dominant unanimous decision victory as a plus 300 dog in the Apex, Santos is looking to build on his 10-1 career and really should have success here. Ozzy Diaz is almost like a fish out of water. He doesn't really know what he's doing. His 2 losses in the UFC are to quality opponents though, including Joe Pyfer and Zhang Mingyang. But the similarity between Santos and those two, they're all well-rounded, powerful strikers. Diaz was knocked out in the first round of both of those fights, and he has been fluctuating between middleweight, light heavyweight, spending his last 3 fights in that division. And although Santos' last 3 wins have come by way of decision, I can totally see him straight up outstriking Diaz and knocking him clean out, adding to the list of victorious prospects from the Dana White Contender Series. The pick right here is Jordan Santos, money line at minus 192. And we already spoke about this fight, but before, Santos versus Marshall. You know how I feel about it. You know who I think's gonna win. But I didn't tell you how. I really think this fight's going to go to decision. Whether I'm right or wrong about the result, this fight is going to be gritty, it's going to be hard fought, and a very nice victory for whoever wants it more. But that's why I'm going to go with the over 2.5 rounds in this fight at minus 175. And the first fight on the main prelims could be an absolute banger or an absolute snooze fest. I opt for the latter because Carlos Leal versus Alex Morono is set to be a striking duel at its finest. Carlos Leal is coming off probably one of the most egregious judges' decisions in UFC history. He completely dominated Rinat Fakhretdinov in Saudi Arabia, but fell victim to potentially biased scorecards, favoring Rinat. The odds makers see this fight as an absolute revenge tour, putting him at minus 700 against the grizzled vet Morono. But Morono hasn't had the best luck in his past 4 fights, going 1-3 with his only win against Court McGee. But the one thing all of those losses have in common, they've all went to decision. So Morono has the tools to point fight, and avoid the big shots, except when he fought Santiago Ponzinibbio in 2022. Don't ask me about that fight. But besides that point, Leal is an extremely powerful striker, but failed to put away an extremely hurt Fakhretdinov, which wound up costing him. I think Morono will make this somewhat of a chess match. That's why I'm opting for the over at 2.5 rounds at minus 205. And the second fight of the prelims is going to be a very interesting one. Another shuffle of the cards, as Josh Van was set to take on Bruno Pitbull Silva, but Pitbull Silva, due to injury, had to withdraw. Van is now set to face Ray Saruya, a product and winner of the Road to UFC circuit, highlighting Asian and European competitors. Sruya comes into this fight at 10-0 and has shown he can win in every form and fashion, knockout, submission, decision. But there's one thing for me. Ray hasn't fought in just about a year, and Josh Van, he's been one of the most active fighters in the UFC, fighting about 6 times in about a year and a half. He has extremely technical, powerful striking and can really avoid damage and takedowns. He's 5-1 with his only loss coming to a very spirited Charles Johnson performance in his hometown. But Sruya could pose an interesting threat to Van if he solely focuses on grappling. Van is just too experienced to let that happen though. So right here, we're going to go with the pick as Joshua Van to win at -185. And I believe Terrence Srikar and I were all in collaboration on this next fight. You heard my guy T-Money talking about him before. It's Bruno Ferreira talking about Arman Petrosyan, taking on Arman Petrosyan, excuse me. Ferreira is an absolute beast, boasting a 100% finish rate in the UFC after getting knocked out cold by Sharon Magomedov in his last fight. Petrosyan is, you know, he's on the up and up, but he could be on the down and down. So I'm going to back the Brazilian to stand and bang at plus money. Give me Ferreira at plus 129 money line. And another fight that Terrence mentioned, and the last fight of the parlay. Oh no, we love the big parlays. Curtis Blaydes versus Rizvan Kuniev. Like I said about that Gutierrez fight earlier, there is going to be levels to this. Kuniev may have beat a great opponent in Hanan Ferreira in the PFL, but the man was on anabolic steroids. Come on, Kuniev, you cannot do that. There's going to be a large gap in skill here, and Blaydes is going to show him what an all-natty American can do when he gets the chance. Terrence got Blaydes covered by knockout, but right here, I'm going to take the under. The official pick is under 2.5 rounds for Blaydes Kuniev at -150. So, wow. That was a lot of picks, guys. I'm going to send it back to Srikar for a few more bets.
Well, the guys have made their picks, and I think I'm ready to hop in with a couple of my best bets. Building off the Alex Pereira moneyline pick earlier, I want to get a little more specific for some juiced odds. I'm going to put $10 on Poatan by knockout in round 3. It's just like I explained earlier. I think Ankalaev tries to play Pereira's game, and it won't work. If he doesn't choose to wrestle from the onset, he will get battered by Alex over the first 2 rounds by way of leg kicks and some beautifully timed counters that won't exactly land flush, but they'll tag him. 3rd round, I think Magomed goes out. I also like the odds for Pereira by knockout in round 2, but I see it this way. Pereira's avenue of winning this fight is by KO. So half the battle's already done there. It's just about deciding when he's going to do it. I say it happens within 3 rounds, so I like the odds on round 2 and 3 the most. $10 on Pereira by knockout in the 3rd at plus 950. So let's go from one Brazilian on the main card to another. I've got 10 on Mauricio Hufi by knockout. I was between this prop and Hufi by points, but either way, we're rocking with the Fighting Nerds. It's hard to pick against that camp, considering they've only lost once in the UFC, and that was Bruno Brazil. That loss happened quite recently. I think Hufi gets it done against what should be a tough test against King Green. I just think Hufi presents problems on the feet that'll be too much for him. This could either be a battering of Green for 15 minutes, or Hufi could just outright starch him. Both options are possible, but I'll put 10 on the latter. Mauricio Hufi by KO. So that rounds out a huge slate of bets that we just put down. Just to recap here, obviously we're going with Pereira over Ankalaev, Fiziev over Gaethje, and then Chris's bets going with Yasmin Lucindo by points against the veteran Amanda Lemos. We got Francis Marshall against Myron Santos, plus 260 odds there. Really juicy. And then Terrence going with Bahamondes by knockout. And then also Ferreira, Bruno Ferreira, the young prospect, by knockout in round 1. And looking even further, there's a whole second page of picks. Ankalaev by knockout, Fiziev by points, and Blaydes by knockout. That's Terrence's parlay. I came right back in with, as I just mentioned, Pereira by round 3 knockout and Mauricio Hufi by knockout. And then Chris with a huge 7-leg parlay to pay out plus 4,700. That is going to be one to watch this Saturday. But UFC 313, an exciting time and a whole lot of picks from us 3. Well, fellas, that was a doozy. But Terrence, Magomed Ankalaev, what are we doing here, bud?
What do you mean? No, look, I'm seeing a big upset right here, guys. Everyone's putting their money on Pereira. It's going to be Ankalaev.
No way. There's just
What
no
do you
way.
mean? What do you
There's
mean?
just no way.
It is gonna watch. You guys are gonna eat your words right here.
Well, whatever your thoughts may be on the main event, UFC 313 goes down in Las Vegas on Saturday. For Chris Stroyer, Terrence Murphy, I'm Srikar Rajendran saying so long from the Beat the Bookie desk. We'll see how we do. Good luck.